Welcome back to the Intelligent Builder podcast, sponsored by Plutus Agents. We help residential contractors eliminate the manual chaos by connecting all their systems and tools so you stop wasting time on admin and lift margins without the extra hires. So if that sounds useful, connect with me on LinkedIn and DM me the word growth for a free consultation. Now today, I'm joined by Tony Hirsch, founder and CEO of Artisan Construct, a full-service GC in Nashville known for his historic craftsmanship and a better building science practice. Since launching in 2017, Tony's built a reputation for collaborative delivery and a real-time transparency with his clients. Tony, it's great to have you on.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, of course. So to start us off, could you just give us a quick snapshot? So what does Artisan Construct do today? What's the typical project profile for you right now in Nashville?
So as you said, we're based in Nashville, Tennessee. We're a team of about 7-8 project managers, right at 20 field carpenters, some estimators, project management team, project coordinators. And our focus is in the urban core of Nashville. We primarily focus on historic restoration, remodel, renovations, whole home additions, things like that. We do a limited amount of urban infill new construction, and we do have a division that does tenant improvements for commercial food, beverage, and hospitality. And that's typically in line with our older homes and older structures. We will do restaurant build outs, boutique hotels, doctor's offices, food, beverage, hospitality is what we kind of lean into. And our kind of comment or joke is that if no one else wants to touch it in an old building, we're your team.
Awesome. You do a little bit of everything over there. That's great.
Got a great team.
Yeah, awesome. So how about you? So what's your day-to-day look like as founder CEO? Is there anything you still own personally, but then what's the rest that you delegate?
So a lot of it, my responsibility as the company has grown and scaled is the relationships with our design community, architects, interior designers, and the clients or individual homeowners, restaurant business owners, things like that. And I see my role as kind of facilitating the success of our team, making sure we have really great processes in place, great project managers, great carpenters, and strategically positioning ourselves to the right project. We can't take on everything that gets thrown our way. Sometimes we're just not the right fit.
Okay, yeah, cool. That makes a lot of sense. So from looking at your website, it kind of seems like you launched ABC. Can I call it ABC? It's much simpler.
Yeah, we say Artisan BC quite a bit.
Artisan BC, I like that. Cool. So it seems like you launched Artisan BC as kind of like a build differently company. So what kind of gap did you see in the market? And then what's kind of like non-negotiable since day one for you?
Well, we launched with this idea that Nashville was becoming a boom town. And there was a lot, I think we had over 130, 140,000 people move in from 2020 to date, 2025. And there was already, a surge before that in 16, 17. And I came from a background of construction project management in the corporate. And then I did some other partnerships with other builders before I started my own company. And we noticed this trend of a declining subcontractor pool, people accepting or having to accept not as well crafted or built homes and spaces and places of business. And we felt we could do something differently by hiring an in-house carpentry and their W-2 employees. So we've been able to develop that team, manage our sales cycle, our production scheduling, the quality control is there. And I think it's uniquely differentiated from other contractors who rely heavily on subcontractors for all the work that they do. We perform almost everything in wood, from form carpentry through light framing, through finished trim, millwork, and built-ins. Anything in wood, we like to say, we'll take it. And a lot of that is very important when you're doing a historic property, like most of the properties we will get into, where you're matching dissimilar dimensional lumber, you're tying into structures that may have post and beam structure, and it becomes more technical. And you want guys and gals who have worked in those types of medium before and understand the uniqueness. And so we're very proud of that team. And I think that is one of the reasons why we've been successful and have enjoyed the growth we've had.
Yeah, absolutely. You emphasize that collaborative approach with architects, designers, and the carpentry, like you're saying. So how does that really change the customer experience, would you say?
Yeah. Well, I think there's design build and there's build design agreements that, I've always admired design build firms because of the speed and efficiency of communication. And so we've had to set up some really good processes to be in line with that. But we know that not every project is for us, like I mentioned earlier. And if we're not going to be a good fit for it, I'm happy to refer the right architectural or design team. From a customer experience, we're going to partner a client with the right architect, design, project management team, build team from the beginning. And that gives us a little more fluidity in the type of projects we're going to take. If we know someone is very good at Richardsonian architecture from a home in the 1880s, we're going to pair that client with that home with the architect who we've done projects with on a similar home or style.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that approach. So you're saying that you don't take all the jobs. So what would be like a red flag from the beginning conversations that makes you kind of walk away?
It's really dependent on what the client is looking for, the speed. If, a client is looking for something that's more commodity driven, like a developer that wants to build tall skinnies is what we call them here, the urban infill lots. We typically are not going to be competitive with someone who's used to that type of a build. And it's not something that we really have a desire to be a part of. It's not, one of our core values is stewardship and maintaining the integrity of the community and the look of the community. And that model of tearing down an existing structure and building two tall skinnies that are kind of lacking or void of character, they're kind of vanilla boxes, it just doesn't fit with our ethos. And so that would be a product that we would steer away from. And then, client profile. If a client has, been through a remodel or renovation, that can be one or two things. They can be a great client. They understand things about construction. And sometimes it can be a difficult client because they're so skeptical of a bad experience or they've got some sort of PTSD. So we think a lot about the client. We think a lot about what the finished goal of the project is. And most of the projects we do, we're doing them not for an investor that's trying to sell and maximize profit. This is people's personal homes or personal properties or part of their portfolio or their personal businesses. So it's very client focused and it has to be more collaborative.
Yeah, cool. I can see how if a client had a bad previous experience, it would be a lot different to work with them. So I'll put this in like an example. So I can imagine that building those historic homes and buildings are a lot more difficult than the rest. So where are some areas where that would stall? And if you have maybe a specific customer experience there, that would be awesome to share.
Yeah, I tell this story a little too frequently. We had we had an architect, good relationship, and he knew that we were very good at historic homes. He was understanding of this, and it was his personal project. And he was given a number from someone who did more new construction and did more, for lack of a better term, track building in cul-de-sacs and planned neighborhoods. And he felt that this person was just a little hungrier, a little more aggressive on the price point, and had quoted a timeline that was more aggressive than ours and a price point that was, substantially less than ours. And we stayed in communication and kind of lost track for a little while, but I think we said the project would take a year. This guy said the project would take 8 months. We said the project would cost $300,000 more. The architect called me and said, "Hey, we need to make a change. We're in now month 18. We're 350 more than he said, 50,000 more than you said, and we don't have an end in sight." And I don't think this was a malicious effort by that other contractor. I think he just simply didn't know. He didn't have the experience. And so I tell that story because we all know, we hear that the low ball number or the lower number. Sometimes it's not malicious. Sometimes it's with best intention. It just doesn't have the knowledge and experience of having worked in this type of a home. So I'm not sure if I answered your question there, but I think of that story often when people say, well, you're telling me it's going to take a lot longer and your experience tells you it's going to cost more than this. And we're pretty proud of the systems we have in place that help us use data from past projects that are working to stay competitive by getting pre-construction process, which we put a lot of time and effort into. The best money a client will spend is on good plans and good pre-construction. We firmly believe that.
Yeah, definitely. And you did answer my question. And I'll kind of jump off that too, along with systems as well. So, aside from that story, a hard lesson that you learned while building up this company, and what process changed because of that?
One of the hard lessons we've learned, and it shows itself again in different ways, is the client who wants to control certain aspects of the job themselves or self-perform, or they have some relationship where they're going to bring in that relationship to be a part of the work. And the lesson learned from that is you really need to have clear boundaries of where that baton will be passed from the guy who says he's going to build his own cabinets and going to install them himself because he has a relationship with a cabinet vendor or cabinet maker, or his father-in-law makes cabinets. Sometimes the delay is not one for one when a client wants to hold part of the scope of work in their, and we want to collaborate and work with them, but we just have to be really clear on communication as to who picks up the baton where and when does the responsibilities get passed between one part of the scope of work to the next.
Yeah, that's funny. I asked somebody a very similar question yesterday, and they gave me almost the exact same answer, like
Yeah.
word for word. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
We do different pricing structures on different type of projects. And one of the things that a good lesson we've learned is that we will make less margin or markup when we know that there is a good architectural and a good interior design team that's going to provide all the information we need, and we're not filling in as many blanks. And that is a positive lesson that's come from our systems to say, okay, the first example, we know if they want to control the scope of work, let's clearly define what scope of work they want to have and where we delineate the line of responsibility and back and forth between those lines. And then also, let's really steer customers to work with those designers, architects, interior designers that provide the information we need to be efficient. And those are two very important lessons that our company has learned as we've scaled.
Yeah, definitely. Communication is so key. And like you were saying, with having those team members internally is very important. So, going off that as well, what would be, say, a hire or trade partner or vendor that's been super key in just moving the needle along? What made that relationship work?
I think it's keeping them very engaged from the earliest phases. So since we do so much of our carpentry in-house, we have a unique ability to go to a mechanical contractor, a plumbing contractor, an HVAC, electrician. And if they need some sort of adjustment made, a wall furred out, beams opened up, or headers off for plumbing lines, or chases for HVAC ducts, having that conversation early with them, having them involved on the pre-construction phase, giving numbers and calling out red flags of what may be necessary throughout the build, that's important. But then being able to deploy our resources to keep them efficient. And we think of our subcontractors and our vendors similarly to the way we think of clients. We want them to come to our projects knowing that it's prepared, that they've got a decent scope of work, the plans are there, and that they understand exactly where their scope of work begins and where it ends, and that they know that they're supported if they need any sort of adjustments or changes. I want them to be excited about working with Artisan Build Construct because they're going to prioritize us, and we pay very quickly. We try to pay with net 14-day terms. And if one of our vendors comes to us for any reason and says, hey, I'm in a situation where I need to be paid in a week, then we're going to work with them to make that happen.
Yeah, and all that kind of comes back to transparency too. So, with client transparency, we'll say, what are 2 to 3 practices that you do that just work that you think some GCs might skip?
Well, we show them our bid leveling from the earliest phases. We show them how we arrive at the number. We're showing, a very detailed line item estimate. We're showing them the partners we've engaged to procure materials or bids from and how we did our bid leveling. And then we're also providing backup receipts on everything that we buy and any cost associated with their job. And then they see our markup at the bottom. So they know that we're not hiding anything. We're not hiring the most expensive guy because that influences our markup. And we've got a very, like I keep using the word stewardship lately. If you're entrusting our team, Artisan Build Construct, with probably what is the biggest investment you've ever made in your life, it's the place where you're going to raise your family, or maybe the place that you age out and maybe your last home, we want to show up, and we want to show up well, and we want to be transparent, and we venerate that respect that you have and trust you've placed with us. So transparency in all things, how we arrived at the numbers, how we are billing, and even when things go wrong. Hey, we've made a mistake. We're going to try to correct for this, or we missed something in the estimate and we're going to have to figure out how to solve for this. Many, many things that I would say have helped our growth. Transparency and our reputation is one of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's super great. So on the tech side of that, you use like a simple client portal and workflow. Could you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, where does your software really reduce friction?
Yeah, we use a cloud-based CRM. So we're having scheduled touch points with our client. We're providing daily logs. They see updates of their schedule. It's a Gantt schedule in some forms. It's a monthly schedule view in others. And we have a set protocol that we meet with the client bi-weekly at minimum, sometimes every week, depending on where we are in the job. And we have a set agenda in every meeting. And that agenda always follows 3 tenets. The first is, where are we at on budget? What upcoming expenses do you have? What big ticket items need deposits? So they are in the know with what they're spending. Back to that transparency. The second thing is we talk about request for information we need to share. We call it the RFI portion of the meeting. And all of this is uploaded into our daily logs and our schedule. Post-meeting, we send the agenda before the meeting, before we arrive. But the third bullet point is the one that we always spend the most time on because everybody wants to know: production schedule. What's happening over the next 2 to 3 weeks? When are we going to be to the next milestone? Maybe that milestone is when we're going to complete. And so we follow that agenda. That is part of our system. The CRM cloud-based tools that we use to share daily logs with photos and notes and sometimes video, the schedule, the transparent billing. We're sending their invoice with every backup receipt every 2 weeks. Easy link to make payment. We really want it to be as seamless and easy, but as consistent an experience from one client to the next. So when people reach out for references or referrals and they talk to our clients, my hope is they say they were very transparent. We always knew what was going on our jobs. When problems arose, they told us how they were going to solve them. And they kept us in the know, but we were really heard. All our concerns were heard weekly, bi-weekly.
Yeah, having the organization there is super key, and the consistent transparency throughout the entire process. That's amazing. So I kind of want to learn more about those agendas you were just talking about. So if you had to pick, say, a template or dashboard that you refer to regularly to maintain your sanity, let's say, what would that be?
Are you talking about particular software packages we use or the templates we use?
Yeah, so really just to make sure you have 100% visibility into, we'll go more on the operational side.
So operationally, we're going to send all of our billing bi-weekly with backup receipts, and then it lives in a shared cloud-based folder that the client can download and review at any time. And our project managers can go back and review anytime, so they can see exactly what the plumber was paid on the last draw and what was the scope of work, what was the purchase order agreement, what is left to buy out the job or close out that scope of work. The CRM software we use with scheduling and daily logs and change order management, I forgot to mention that one, is something that our team uses daily. So technology is very important. And, as technology has started to adopt AI just in organization of thoughts, we see that as something that's going to trend and going to continue for a long time. We even are plugging in schedules to say, how would we optimize this to stack trades? How would we potentially rewrite this scope of work to send it out to a broader pool of subcontractors or vendors for request for proposal or RFP? AI helps speed that up. And so we're using more of the Perplexities and ChatGPTs and, a couple of different tools for that.
Yeah, putting AI in your workflows, it saves so much time. So let's talk more about that subcontractor coordination you have going on. So is that involved with your CRM that you use, or how do you keep that tight and seamless so you're not drowning in admin all the time?
Yeah, well, we have dedicated resources within the team. We call them pre-construction managers and project coordinators. They have a template that they send out saying, this is the scope, this is the date we need your bid back, this is the trades day we're going to organize if you'd like to come out and walk the property, view the property with our project management team. Here are the plans. Once those, and it's a little bit more of a manual process, but spreadsheets that we are saying, okay, we've received bid from, Bob the builder for HVAC and Handy Manny for HVAC, but we didn't receive one from Cool Breeze HVAC. So we've got an automated, using Calendly app actually to just say, hey, remind this client this subcontractor in the case, that we had sent a bid and it was due by 10/3 and today's 10/2. Is he going to be able to get it in, or does he have any questions he needs to ask, or vice versa? Does he need an extension of time? And sometimes it's hard wrangling those cats in. And that manual process is made easier when we're using a software like Calendly to automate that response and that reminder to them that the bids are due. And then, the bid leveling. Once we receive numbers, we want to, and that's a pretty labor-intensive process to have a dedicated person say, I'm looking at all 3 HVAC bids, and he's quoting a 16 SEER Train, he's quoting a 21 SEER American Standard. Why did they differ? What was the point? We told everyone to do 18 SEER or something like that.
Yeah, things like Calendly, I use that too, and it is super, super helpful. And that removes a little bit of the friction there. So what is kind of like the next iteration you're looking into to continue to remove the friction within the business?
I think one of the things we're really starting to lean into is the speed of helping customers make decisions. So many customers just need that educative hand-holding. And so we're building our own ChatGPT avatars that if a client says, what's the difference between a single hung and a double hung window, a casement window? We have a quick catalog to where we say, here's a link to how casement windows work versus how double hung windows work. Or what's the price difference between that type of window? We're plugging that information. And so we call him Handy Andy, right? And that's our avatar we're creating. So that's going to be one thing is clients, when they have the information, can make decisions much faster. So how do you get the information to them more expedited, more efficiently?
That's awesome. That is super smart. I haven't heard anyone else doing that so far. So good on you
I'm
for
more
thinking
than just a
about
pretty
that.
face and a $10 haircut. Look at all that hair.
I
There you
love
go.
it. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say it's smart. I think it's just a necessity. I really always want to be thinking just philosophically, how do we serve our client better? How do we show up better for them? And our client isn't just the end user, homeowner, or business owner. In many cases, it's our subcontractors, it's our vendors, it's our staff, our project managers, our carpenters. If they aren't having to answer that question of what's the difference between a laminate flooring and a 3/4 hardwood flooring? What are the pros and cons? What are the price differences? If they are able to say, hey, Handy, give me a quick answer of the difference between LVT versus 3/4 hardwood and cost differences and pros and cons that we've seen on other projects. And by the way, tell us some projects that Artisan has done an install of each that a customer may be able to see. That's the type of efficiency differentiator that I think clients respond well to.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And especially as a leader, you have to think high level most of the times and have that vision. Going along with vision, actually, what would you say are kind of the goals you have for the next 12 months? What would make that next 12 months, say 2026, a win for you?
I think it's going to be speed is important. Clients that are on the fence about making decisions. So how thoroughly and exacting can we turn estimates around with and give people the right range of magnitude? How fast can we push through our pre-construction process, get all their selections and finishes? So a goal over the next 12 months is always efficiency. We're looking at more innovative types of projects too and builds. We've talked to some of our truss providers and some of our lumber yards to say, are there projects where a large scale addition makes sense to have the stairs built off site, have walls pre-constructed and assembled and brought there and then craned into place? We recently did a basement where it was in a tight urban infill lot and we used a precast concrete wall system and had to crane these concrete 12-foot walls over other houses. And you talk about being nervous. It was a very tight day for me watching a crane of very heavy concrete walls fly over other homes to drop into a 12 or 14-foot deep pit on a 1/4 acre lot in an urban infill new build. But that efficiency, we did the math and we determined that precast concrete walls with, built-in waterproofing coatings and then waterproofed on the interior and exterior again would save us so much time that time expense or that cost investment, the time that it saved us was definitely in the customer's favor on when you compare to how long they were out of the property before they could take ownership and move into it. And so we're very happy with that innovation and it's staying top of mind. Like, how can we be more efficient? How can we be innovative? How can we save our clients time, money, frustration on communication? That's always top of mind for our vision board.
Yeah, definitely. That seems like some risky business right there, but it definitely worked out and increased efficiency pretty well. So
Yeah.
let's say hypothetically you have a magic wand, right? And you can make a wish to change a process or something that's holding you back in the business right now or slowing you down. What would that one thing be? Maybe it's to make the efficiency better for the next 12 months.
I mean, that's part of it. I think that I don't believe in magic wands that could, that could do. I think it's small incremental changes, like the Japanese theory of Kaizen, where you're making small changes and learning from the experience of your past successes and past failures, and then saying, okay, well, how do we avoid that failure? And how do we continue to improve upon that success? So small incremental changes are very important to our business model. But if there was a issue, I would say one of the things is client decisions, giving a client the confidence to move forward with decisions. Sometimes there's so many options, there's so many things they can see on the web and the internet that they're just paralyzed, and convincing them to trust design professionals, trust the builder, that we're operating in their best interest. We all want the success of their project. If there could be a device created that would say, here is how we're going to help you make your decisions more expeditiously or quickly and give you the confidence that you're making the right decision. This is a huge investment for most people. So they're going to take their time, and they should. They absolutely should.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree that getting 1% better every day is going to be the most helpful thing moving forward. And it sounds like Handy Andy is going to solve that other issue we're having with some clients.
We'll see how it works out, and I think AI is going to continue to get better and better with those type of, I don't know, what is it, iterative AI that can help anticipate questions and next steps.
Yeah, AI is only going to get better from here. So actually, I'll kind of tie that into my last question here. I want to know your thoughts on any industry shifts that you're planning around or foresee in the next, 1 to 2 years.
I think that because the impact of artificial intelligence, and I've just been kind of toying with this in my mind, I don't have it well articulated by any means, but I think you're going to see people that are, since COVID, we've seen people not as tied to offices and they can work remotely. And so in my business, I have a lot of requests for office space or separate space that become the work, the gym, the whatever on the property, because people can work from anywhere. And I think that there's some efficiencies in that type of work because of AI. So we're starting to see this kind of swelling of not just people wanting to have their own home office or home gym or sanctuary space within the home that is dedicated to work, but also people who are, we are fighting this perception that everything is instantaneous. I call it the iPhone syndrome. When you buy a new iPhone, you open it up, you tap it to your other iPhone, and all your contacts are there, and you download a couple apps, and 20 minutes later, you've got a brand new, beautiful phone that takes better pictures and surfs the internet faster and knows what you like. Building a home is not that way. Remodeling a home is not that way. So it's a constant resetting of expectations. And I think AI, in particularly with the fast and the speed of answers, well, you still need to go research those answers. You still need to make sure that that's right for your project. And I think people are like, well, can't you just build a detached additional dwelling unit and put a garage in there in 30 days? I mean, here's all the stuff you need. And you're like, well, it takes time to get through permitting and through codes and inspections and everything we build is a prototype. It's not being built in a factory like an iPhone.
Yeah, well, hey, maybe someday everything like that will be instantaneous. You never know at this point, honestly.
I don't know. I hope not. I think there's something lost when you have everything instantaneously. You can't swipe left on a beautiful home or an experience, right? And I think that we're starting to see maybe a backlash where people want more connectivity to other humans. I know personally when I receive an application for employment and it looks like every other AI driven cover letter and AI driven resume, I don't get a sense of someone's authenticity, I guess is the word I'm using. And I'm less interested in that applicant.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Well, awesome. Hey, thank you, Tony. This was excellent. We'll
Thank
wrap it
you.
up
I
there.
appreciate the time. It was a pleasure getting to speak with you.
Yeah, no, of course, of course. But before we close out, Tony, is there anywhere that people should connect with you? Maybe website, LinkedIn?
Yeah. www.artisanbuildconstruct.com is our website. And if you need to connect with me directly through the info@artisanbuildconstruct.com, one of our team will put you in touch with me, and our phone number will always get someone in the office that'll put you in touch with us, and we can connect. And LinkedIn, I think I'm under Anthony Hirsch on LinkedIn, but everybody calls me Tony. So there you go.
Awesome, Tony. Well, I will link that stuff below just to make it a little bit easier. But to the audience, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and send it to another builder or founder in your circle. And I'll see you in the next episode of The Intelligent Builder.